through, we will, get to after she's obviously spoken and addressed everybody. If you all have anything that isn't on the agenda that you would like to see added, use that chat function, and then we'll go through those things towards new business. Because this is supposed to be interactive. It's not just people talking at you. We want your ideas and the best that we can do here. So it's 7:35. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Welcome to the February meeting of City Island Rising, February 2022, our first 2022 meeting. My name, as you can see on the screen, is John Doyle, and I'm the president of the board. We welcome you all, and we thank you for coming with us to build community here in 2022. And hopefully we're through the worst of COVID and we can all start meeting in person again, whether it's at the Clipper or the Harlem Yacht Club or Man Overboard or some of the other fun and interesting places where we've had our meetings over the years. Because when we get together, it's always a lot more fun and it's better interactions, of course. So, as I said earlier, Alessandra Biaggi, our state senator, is going to be joining us. Just before she gets on, just so everyone's very clear, because I have our legal advisor, who's our secretary, who's usually the smartest person in the room, definitely smarter than me. I'm going to clarify. Alessandra Biaggi was invited here tonight as our state senator, not as a candidate for office. We're talking about ongoing matters, as you can see from the agenda, where she has played an active role in the community. So we're going to be talking about those things in her capacity as state senator, just so everybody's clear. And the first thing, obviously, is that we're going to be discussing are the redistricting lines. If people have not seen them, this is an issue of concern in the community. While Rising itself didn't take a public position and we didn't vote as a board any which way, some of us were involved in an open letter, which people were free to sign on to or not sign on to, which is getting a lot of attention. The letter was sent to the governor's office. It's going to be sent to all the legislative leaders. It was sent to our local legislators as well, to convey that we wanted to remain with the communities we're historically with, that we share interests with, which is Pelham Bay and all of Throgs Neck and Country Club, the areas that we are in the same other political boundaries with, the areas of our community board, the areas of our precinct council, or precinct rather. So, we're communities of shared interest. We share the same subway lines. Our buses run to and from each community. And, we're just a little concerned with how this is all going to turn out. Obviously, the lines were passed and signed by the governor. So now there are legal challenges going on. Obviously, I don't know if the group is going to weigh in on that. It might be worth a further discussion. But I want you to know that we have reached out to a few, like the Brennan Center of Justice, which is nonpartisan, and a few election attorneys, to make sure that they, to see what they're up to. And one of them actually got back to me and said they may be trying to challenge the lines. So we will just make sure people are aware of that information, and however they want to use it is fine. But we wanted people to know that, again, we have been drawn into a new congressional district, which will be City Island, Country Club, part of Throgs Neck, the entire sound side of Westchester, pretty much, which is Pelham, New Rochelle, Mamaroneck, Rye, and then the northern side of Mount Vernon and to Suffolk and Smithtown, Long Island. So beyond that, our state Senate lines and our assembly lines have largely stayed the same. So there will be obviously primaries in June, and then general elections in November. And just want to make sure everybody's aware of those things. It's always good to be informed. And then that way, as we get closer down the line, we can discuss, if we're all going to partner, and how we're going to make sure that people get out and vote, not for whomever, but get out and vote, because we're one of the more active constituencies in the region. And that's why people pay attention to us. So we want everybody to vote. We're pro voting, and we want to keep up our high voter percentage that vote. That was number one. Number two, the board did take action in that we sent a letter to we sent a letter to the City Planning Commission and to our elected officials. This was with respect to the Metro North. And if anybody would like a copy, it ran in the Island Current, and I think it's going to run in the Bronx Times. This letter basically said that there needs to be a path drawn to the Co-op City Station, because the Co-op City Station is going to be in section 5, right over by the highway exit. It's going to be very close to where the 29 bus runs. So what we're trying to do as a board, as a community, is to get an accessible path, a well-lit accessible path, so people can walk probably 400 to 500 feet to get onto the Metro North. So we have a good connection with the Metro North. As people know, the bus is going to go 24/7, but the City Island bus is going to be a loop bus. That way it doesn't get stuck on I-95, which is a cause of the bottleneck and a cause of the reason that the bus all of a sudden doesn't show up, and then 4 or 5 29 buses all come at the same time. So we are trying to make that a more accurate, accessible form of transportation. So that letter went out. The Metro North, Department of City Planning has acknowledged receipt of that letter. And I know some of our elected officials have received the letter. So we will probably have an update on that going forward. Also on the transportation kick we have, obviously we launched our petition. Yes. And I just got that. We'll be ready for her at 7:45, no problem. We launched our ferry petition, which is to encourage the New York City Ferry to examine the stop from City Island. We've gotten a really, really encouraging turnout thus far. Over 500 people have signed up online, and then another 225 have signed up. We've had petitions out while the Rising Board is tabling at public events. We've also had the petition out at certain establishments on the island. Not everybody is pro ferry. I want to be very clear, and we are not saying that, that their voices don't matter. We're just advocating for our point of view, and this is the best way to do that.
Yep. John?
Yes.
Can you put the petition on the chat and send it in? So I don't know if I signed it or not.
No, all right. Yeah, hold on. I will put it in the chat as this meeting goes on, but no problem.
Okay.
All right. We will absolutely, I'm making a note to myself. I will put it, chat petition. We will get it up there. And, we also had, again, another 200 that were signed at local establishments. I know there is one person who's particularly dedicated who has been kind of trying to rip up the petitions and has to be stopped. So we are, and I will answer questions just as I get through this. Thank you, Beverly put it in the chat for you, Barbara. So what we are going to do is we're going to just continue to try to get the ferry petition out there. And I want to thank everybody for being so responsive. I get all the hard copies here. And so I'm looking through them and I'm seeing a lot of, people from City Island that I know, and it's very much a resident-based petition, which is good. As I said earlier in the social discussion we had, we've gotten over 2,000 face masks, the good ones, the NK95 ones like this. So, they go out like this. You can put it around. They're better for the Omicron. We've gotten over 2,000 of them. We have a link that was in our social media posts and was sent in our emails. If you would like us to drop them off, we have that. We have hand sanitizer. We can drop that off to you. So you just sign up, and then probably Friday or Saturday, and probably a few other members of the board are just going to go put them in people's mailboxes or on their doors. You get a 10-pack of the masks, so that'll last you at least a month, and you get hand sanitizer as well. We are also going through a few grant conduits for for a community mural. We're working with a local City Island artist. The same artist, Liz, she's the one who did the Put a Bird on It on the across from Archie's. We're working with her. So we're going to have another mural somewhere on City Island. We don't know where, but we're going to be raising a little money to support that. So you're going to see a GoFundMe go live pretty soon, and encouraging everybody to be as generous as they can be. I know money's tight for some. Do what you can, do what you're comfortable with. And we're going to have another mural on City Island, at least one, maybe two, who knows, but we're going to definitely have a new mural on the island. UPK is another project we've been working very closely with. Assemblymember Benedetto has been helping us with that. He spoke to the education chancellor and said this was an issue of concern, that we are remote and we do not have UPK within our community. So what the so they issued a new RFP. A group that is not City Island based, but is Bronx based, a very well-known group. I don't want to announce it yet because it's not a done deal yet. They put in the RFP and were approved. And so what we've basically been doing now is, and I want to thank Maria Swizicki and Kim Woodruff because they've been particularly helpful. But we've been basically looking around at sites where UPK could possibly go. And we had a site visit last week at one of the sites. And it's not quite ready for an announcement, but things are really progressing in a positive direction. The RFP has been moving forward. The conversations with the landlord have been good. Everybody's kind of in the same price range. We're just doing some inspections. And then we may be very, very close to letting people know, which is good for me and good for the community, but particularly good for me because as many of you know, I have many younger siblings and cousins who have kids who nag me about this every single day. So for the babies of the island, this will be a good thing. Then we have, we've been working, a bunch of us, particularly David Diaz and myself from our board, but in consultation with Patrick Gannon, who's on this call, and Barbara Zom, who's on this call, who wears many hats, but one of those hats is the Hutchinson River Restoration Project. And we have been attending meetings with Senator Biaggi, among others. And I know the senator literally could jump on the call at any moment, Barbara, but if you'd like to bring everybody up to speed about where you are with the Hutchinson River Restoration Project and save the sound really quickly.
Sure. This is very good news. I just want to make it clear because I don't think everyone understands that currently Save the Sound has been given $200,000 from the Long Island Sound Future Fund, which is actually comes from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, which is federal funding, to create what they call the plan for the Hutchinson River watershed. I know everyone thought it was only in Westchester, but that's because it's phase one was money for Westchester. Their plan is to continue on into the Bronx, into New York in the next round of funding, which will be coming up this spring. So, and they want the Hutchinson River Restoration Project as a grassroots advocacy group to be very much involved in creating this plan and understanding how we want to restore the Hutchinson River. So this, to me, I'm so excited. This is so positive because Save the Sound has taken the initiative to now want to spearhead the figuring out where all the pollution starts from and how we stop the pollution, and that it's being federally funded. This sort of, now the plan will look at all the, it's a research, it's not doing it, it's not implementation yet, but it's figuring it all out. They're following what's called the 9-element EPA plan to figure out what needs to be done. And then obviously they'll go after more money to actually implement it. And Save the Sound does a fair amount of lawsuits against polluters. They have in the past in different areas, usually in Connecticut. But so this is now, they're focusing on the Hutchinson River. And I couldn't be more personally delighted, and that they've reached out to our advocacy group, and I will include all the City Island advocacy groups to support, you know, the restoration of the Hutchinson River. So I don't know if Aji, did you want to say anything else about it? It's just very exciting. I think we may actually eventually, not right away, but we're on the road to getting the Hutchinson River restored.
Right, which is important, guys. It really is, because it flows by a lot of our front doors.
Yeah. And we don't want to be deep in it, that's for sure. And I'm not going to say what it is because this is supposed to be a civil conversation, but we don't want to be deep in what's ever being flushed down. And obviously, Patrick, I want to thank Patrick because Patrick's been doing some initial research and he's kind of convened us as kind of a working group together. Patrick, did we settle on what the name of it would be or no?
So many. I arrived at one that I liked, but you know, they want to stay with the original one, but we're still talking. But I just wanted to throw something in because, you know, when Senator Biaggi comes on board, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Good. Because, you know, I met with one of her representatives, Angela Conley, the other day, and I shared with all of you guys. And they're trying to build an alliance between other people, not just the Save the Sound, but another group, the Bronx River Alliance, who've done a lot of things over the years. And it would be good to share their expertise and to collaborate with them or consult with them or wherever we can do, because we're really the new kids in town, and we could really use their guidance and some kind of advice on the best way to go. I have a million ideas, whether they're realistic or not, we haven't decided yet. But the other thing I wanted to share with you as well is that Angela Conley, Senator Biaggi's person, told me that the EPA was meeting with Mount Vernon to talk about the millions and millions, $10 million that they got to fix their problems, and what is going to be the timeline of that and projected outcomes, so that on that end, they are doing that, and then comes the river. So I think those timelines are not really that clear, and so I hope Biaggi is going to do that, because maybe they didn't meet yet, but it was like a privileged environment. They weren't allowed to go there because it was a conflict of interest for them to be there. So maybe you got some kind of idea of where that action is going and how long it will take to get fixed on that end, the damage end, in other words.
Yeah. And Patrick, thank you for doing that and taking kind of a very, very strong initiative on this. And we wanted to have this conversation now, and the senator's running a few minutes behind, but we wanted to have this conversation now because we all, got the chance to learn from Patrick in our last meeting about the Hutchinson River. So what we try to do in this meeting is we track things, we started here, where are we going to? And that's why we want to give everybody an update. Things are progressing. The senator is going to give the update where her office stands on the Hutchinson River, which is very substantive when she gets on the call. What I will say in the interim is that we are going to probably be doing some stuff with the Mother Nature Bond Act, and it's a link in the chat. I'm sorry, in the agenda here. And we're going to take a motion probably at the end of the meeting to support campaigning for the Mother Nature Bond Act, because we want to get that $4 billion and get that into funding, because we think that this would be a perfect project for the Hutchinson River and to improve our overall water quality and climate. So we are really going to be pushing that. Yes, Barbara.
I just want to say, if anyone's interested in learning more about what the Hutchinson River Restoration Project is doing, and to get onto our mailing list so we can communicate with you about any of this progress, or if you want to be more part of any activities that we do.
Yeah.
Please, I don't know, please send me your emails. I don't know, John, how do you want to?
Yeah, just if anyone wants to, they can, Barbara, why don't you put your email in the chat, and people can email you that way. But what I'll do is I'll include it in an e-blast out afterwards if people want to connect with the Hutchinson River. Again, it's important we all work together. We all care about this issue. We all want clean water. I know City Island's famous for being the neighborhood of 4,500 people with 9,000 opinions, but I haven't run into anyone who says that they want dirty water that they want to swim in. I haven't run into that person yet. I'm sure they exist, but I haven't seen them yet. And we're going to really be, we're going to take a vote at the end of the meeting to campaign for the Mother Nature Bond Act, and just to campaign on us getting some of that money. And we've been speaking with both our state legislators, both our assembly member and our senator, because we're going to be pushing for this project to really be one of the top priority projects. So that's coming. We'll be in touch on that. Another project we're working on with a different elected official, our Congresswoman, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, is we're trying to underground the electrical lines. This has been an important resiliency project that's been spoken about for about 20 years. And there may be money in the bipartisan infrastructure bill for this. So David and I have been sitting down with a few climate activists. We had a meeting concerning the utility lines during the summer of 2020. Obviously, we've been in touch with the public power people. They support this. And the Congresswoman's office is looking through kind of how that process would lay out. There definitely is funding for this. The question is, who is to be the applicant? So her office and her staff have been on top of this, and they are working on that, and we will have a further update probably next month. But they've really been, they've researched the bill. And, these bills, they're like thousands of pages. So they've got to reach out, find the text, reach out to the agency, find out the process. It's not easy stuff. So we appreciate them. Also, another thing we may need to, another issue with the park beyond the potholes that we all experience every day is, and I'm famous for this, but I know it's not just me, or at least I hope it's not just me. is the cell phone reception within Pelham Bay Park itself. So this has been something we've been working on for about 2 years. Verizon is about to make some very, very concrete steps to improve reception within the park overall. AT&T did a study of their lines, their kind of Wi-Fi, whatever, their cell phone reception, and they came back and said they're okay. And now we're working with T-Mobile and Sprint to try to get them to do the same. So we're hoping to have more for you soon, but there has been, the T-Mobile group has been looking into this for about 2 months. So we are hopeful that as they begin to study what can be done to move this forward. Beyond that, the only other issue I put ongoing issues down here, and we can feel free to discuss them. I just didn't feel that they required a verbal update on this call. I want to save time for you guys, for the senator, for any questions you have. But the trucks in the manufacturing area about Schofield Street, this is something the board has spoken about. This is something, as many of you know, I live across the street, so I'm living. I'm well aware of the idling of the vehicles, of the double parking, the parking in the fire lane, all that stuff. We've been in touch with the DEP. We've been in touch with the NYPD. We're going to get in touch with the operator, but clearly if the operator is parking in the fire lane, they're aware they're probably not operating within scope in the letter of the law. So we are looking into how to best handle this issue. I know that someone from the 45th precinct went over the other day just to give a polite warning, which is, many of you know, with enforcement agencies, usually first you get the warning, and then, you know, if you don't see a change of behavior, it gets very different. If any of you are experiencing this, I was kind of alarmed to hear from friends of mine that it's actually at its worst when the kids are getting released from school and when the kids are going to school, which to me is just like, you know, that to me is the worst thing. I don't, you know, if it wakes me up in the middle of the night, you know, I'll go back to, I'm a pretty sound sleeper, but the kids and you know, this is not a safe situation. So we are definitely going to be doing, more with this as we go forward.
Yes, to that, John, it was incredibly dangerous the other morning. Yes, it's David.
Oh, good. Well, that was not good for you. Good to
No, it was incredibly. There was trucks, parked trailers with backhoes on them. All like it was just a mess.
Yeah, I got quite the video today. Thank you for that, David. I got quite the video today that I was going to send out. And we will get back to talking about trucks and emissions and the greater joys of living in a mixed manufacturing area. But our guest has joined us for the evening, Senator Biaggi. Senator, good to see you. Thank you for joining us. And I'll leave it to you. You have the floor.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. And I'm excited to be here, and I will stay as long as it takes to answer everybody's questions after I give you all an update. First of all, I just want to say that the moment that we're in right now in Albany is budget season. It goes from really the beginning of January, but honestly, when it comes to the budget hearings, they begin in February and they end at the end of February. And then March 1 to March 31st is when like all chaos breaks loose in the best way, because it's actually a lot of fun. And in the beginning of March, the Senate and the Assembly will each be introducing their one House budget resolution. And this is in response to the governor's executive budget proposal, which has already been shared and also discussed. And so that's what we're going through now. And so I share that on the front end because I just want to orient us towards where we are right now. And also if there are community needs or community interests or community issues that you want to be included in this budget, please make sure that you email my office so that we can include it in our budget letter to the majority leader, which is due in about, I think 7 or 8 days. And we'll put the information in there for you just so that you know what is going on. And so when it comes to bringing it back to like legislative overview and what we're up to, there are a lot of priorities that are not competing. They're in fact very much exciting. And I think that the priorities I'm about to share with you are probably priorities that we all have. But I just want to also share that I believe that these things can get done primarily because we have a new governor who wants to work with us. This is the first time that we have ever had a governor who is actually talking to us when we're doing the budget process. And that sounds probably insane, but it isn't, because we have never had that kind of relationship. And so it's really exciting and has meant that a lot of bills at the end of last year that needed to get signed there weren't just outright vetoes. There were discussions about how to maybe change a thing or two, and really a willingness to get it done so that we could actually do our jobs. So it's an incredibly different place to work. And it has meant, I think, a lot of people feel very hopeful. So in terms of priorities, we are still prioritizing pandemic response and recovery, making sure that the budget that we pass raises revenue in a way that can actually serve our underserved communities. And so just to frame that for everybody, we have about a $6 billion surplus, which is a very good thing. But we have that surplus because of the federal funds that New York received. So it's not going to be that high forever. In addition to that, there is a real focus on passing really transformative housing legislation. So think about building housing around transit, reshaping the way that we think about zoning. And also there's been a lot of conversation, although I've heard some false narratives around it, but a lot of conversation about ADUs, which are, I think it's just, yeah, that's okay. Accessory dwelling units, which are really important, I think, to increasing our housing stock and also allowing for people to be able to afford where they live, and legalizing places where people are already living. And the reason why that's important and really becoming such an urgent issue is because during the last storm, where we had such severe flooding, so many people that died and lost their lives were in units that were not legalized, so to speak. And so basement units, there were windows that really were not up to code. And even though building code is like the least sexy topic that we could talk about, it is also one of the most important things that we could actually get done. Because if a firefighter or an emergency responder has no idea that somebody's living in a certain place, they don't know to rescue them. And so it's a problem. It has cost too many lives, and there's finally a willingness to do this. In addition to those things, of course, I'm the chair of ethics, and so prioritizing ethics reform, which is in the budget, although we're going to push the governor to go a little further, really tackling our climate crisis by continuing to invest more money, making sure that we are looking at the ways in which we can prevent gun violence. And that means we have to invest our literal dollars in preventing gun violence. So anti-violence programs, after school programs. One of the things that I am absolutely just alarmed by in a way I cannot even express here is the fact that the areas or the zip codes that have the highest gun violence, a lot of them in District 34 do not have after school programs that are consistent. And so that means that if you are a middle schooler or a high schooler and it's between the hours of 3 to 5, which we know are the hours that children and teenagers are most likely to get into trouble, we don't have programs in place to prevent that from happening, which is such an obvious thing that we should be doing. And so it's something that a lot of us are fighting for, in addition to childcare, universal childcare, because we know, and we can't forget this, that the pandemic has caused over 1 million women to leave the workforce. And that's because childcare has historically fallen on women. It still does. And we cannot afford to lose women in the workforce. And we don't want to lose women in the workforce, even though we know that childbearing and caring duties are not just on one person. So that is that category. When it comes to ethics and what I'm prioritizing this legislative session, just to reorient everyone, we have this really unworkable ethics commission called JCOPE. It was set up to fail. And so right now what we're trying to do is replace it, which we have to do through a constitutional amendment. And while we do that, to make it actually function. And that means making changes to it so that the people who have been appointed to this body can actually do their jobs. And so I have a bill that I carry that I really believe this year actually has a lot of momentum because of the year we've just come off of, and that feels very exciting. The second thing, again, another non-sexy topic, but really important to how our government functions and also to rooting out corruption and fraud, is dealing with the Inspector General's office, which is a safeguard, or supposed to be a safeguard, that sits at the top of our executive branch of government, and is really tasked with investigating all kinds of corruption and fraud, conflicts of interest in all of the executive agencies, so the health agency and in housing, and it really does play a very key role in making sure that there is ethical conduct in our government. But the problem is that our Inspector General does not have independence from the governor. And so what that has meant is that that office has really been compromised in their ability to fulfill the mission of the office. So I have a bill to also reform that and actually make it much more in line with how other states do it, and also how it's done at the federal level, where the IG is supposed to report each year, each legislative session to Congress to show them what they've done, to give them a report, to show certain investigations that have taken place and where they've ended up. And so I think that this is also another year to do that. In addition to that, another two bills that are really, I think, important and also a key to really addressing some of the issues that we see on a local level with regard to homeless shelters is Wi-Fi in homeless shelters. And you might think to yourself, like, why is this important? Why do we have to do this right now? If you are in a homeless shelter and you are trying to look for a job and you do not have access to internet, you cannot find a job. And so it's these little things that, even though there was a court case that mandated that, I believe it was 284 family shelters are required to have Wi-Fi, there are still Wi-Fi shelters in New York City that don't have it or not mandated to have it. And there's also a whole state that has homeless shelters where people who are living in them don't have access to internet. And it's beyond just finding a job. It's also if you need to communicate with your lawyer, or if you need to get in touch with a therapist or a social worker, you are prevented from doing that. And it's really one of those barriers for allowing people to get back on their feet that we can remove, especially because we have federal funds to do this. So this is another important priority. We know at the federal level that Roe is really imminently going to be, if not incredibly hindered, overturned entirely. New York State, just to remind us, in 2019 codified Roe v. Wade, which I'm so proud of and very grateful that we did. But just because we give people the right to access abortion, it doesn't mean they have the means to. And so I have a bill with another member in the Assembly, Carinas Reyes. It's called the Abortion Access Fund. If you ever look at your taxes, when you see these little boxes on the side, they're called voluntary contributions. Sometimes you can give money for things like the Alzheimer's Research Fund, or last year we did something for retired horses. There's, trees and climate justice, and there's all categories. And we want to add one for abortion access fund so that people who need access to an abortion and don't have the funds or the childcare or the transportation can actually access it as well. And we know why this is also important is because when Roe is hindered or overturned, New York State will be a reproductive sanctuary state, and people will come here from other places. And we want to be sure to be able to provide them with the just proper care that they deserve. As we segue into climate justice and talk a little bit about that, I wanted to say that I'm really proud to have introduced a bill that addresses the climate crisis as a motivator, but also really has, I think, taken the fashion industry by storm, which is an industry that has gone basically unregulated for its entire existence. It has operated in a black box. And that is also why we are seeing so many companies at least try or attempt to make it seem like they are green. There's a lot of greenwashing. There's a lot of inconsistent labor standards. And so I introduced with Assembly Member Kellis the Fashion Sustainability and Social Accountability Act. All of the bills I'm talking about, by the way, I will put in the chat for you to take a look at if you feel excited about them. This legislation is the first of its kind in the world, not just in the United States, in the world. And the goals of the bill are to hold the $2.5 trillion fashion industry accountable for its impact on people, labor, and the planet. because the fashion industry is responsible for between 4 and 8.6% of global greenhouse gas emissions. And it also regularly engages in labor and human rights violations that have led to many people's deaths. And so, New York City is one of the fashion capitals, if not the leading fashion capital of the world. And so I believed with Assemblymember Kellis that New York has a responsibility, but also a moral obligation to not only mitigate the environmental and social impacts of the industry, but also to show the rest of the world that it's possible and to encourage other cities and other states to do the same. I'll put all the details of that bill into, again, the chat, but we have built an incredible coalition of elected officials, advocates, industry leaders. There are a lot of fashion leaders as well, like Stella McCartney and other fashion brands who are on board, Jane Fonda. Obviously, these things are exciting and amazing, but the legislative process really will only churn when we have labor on board. So our next goal is to get the labor unions, namely RWDSU, to really be a part of this, because without them, I don't think that this bill could have every star on the planet and it wouldn't actually pass. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. When it comes to climate, because I know this is something that John and I talk about a lot, in 2019, we passed the CLCPA. That was the framework for New York, which was really creating the most aggressive framework in the country to reduce emissions in every single sector. At the end of 2021, the Climate Action Council, which was established by the CLCPA, released its draft scoping plan. And that's important because it set forth a lot of recommendations for legislative as well as executive actions to meet the New York climate goals in the CLCPA. The scoping plan included a lot of different proposals, but I'll just highlight a few of them for you. There's one which requires that all new passenger vehicles be zero emissions by 2035. That's incredibly exciting and also something that is absolutely achievable. Making sure that we are creating a New York Forest carbon bank, working with our farms also to make sure that the soil health and the nutrient management practices are actually in line with the bill, and also in line with the future of farming, improving organic waste reduction, recycling programs. One thing I will note that's not related to the CLCPA, but just to put on everybody's radar is that, and it's kind of related to the fashion bill, is that if you go to almost every other borough, and let's say you have clothes that you want to recycle, you can go online and find one of those little bins and throw your clothes in there, except that the Bronx has zero of those. And so that's ridiculous. And it's something that I'm working on changing, because it just doesn't make any sense that we wouldn't just have these bins here too. And so again, it's the little actions, but also the CLCPA is a massive bill that I think once it's finally implemented and funded, because that's important too, will actually make a big shift. Now, I will say this, even though we passed the Mother Nature Bond Act, and that is great, and I'll get to that in one moment, the problem is that we have to fully fund the CLCPA. And one of the bills that we believe will do that is the CCIA. I know there's a lot of acronyms here and I'm sorry, so please just forgive me. We are fighting for this budget to include $15 billion to be included in the budget for this bill. Frankly, we don't have a choice, and we really are out of excuses. And we can put money into all the other things that we talk about, but if we don't address this issue, nothing else is going to matter, because everything's going to be 6 feet underwater, and it's just, nobody's going to have anywhere to live. And so the point is, this is a priority for a majority of members in the Democratic conference. We'll put the scoping plan in the actual chat just so you can take a look at it. An important part of the governor's budget related to the CLCPA is the Environmental Bond Act. The governor is proposing $4 billion. This is something that, again, has to go to the voters for a vote, and it's a referendum. And so if it's approved, it will allow for us to invest in resiliency projects. I won't get into all the details. We'll put that in the chat as well. It's a good step in the right direction, but we really do not have any time to wait to start implementing the scoping plan that I just mentioned. A few other things just before I wrap up here. I also support, there is a really important bill with regard to New York State public renewables to allow the New York Power Authority to own and to build new renewable generation storage and transmission. This is important because New York State is actually closer to losing our power when it comes to the power grid to Texas than to other places. So if we just remember about a year or two ago, there was that terrible storm, that ice storm that, I mean, it caused people to die, including newborn babies, and they lost power for an incredible amount of time without really any kind of plan in place. We are closer to that when it comes to our power grid than we think. It's very scary, but it's also something we can do something about. And so this bill is a bill that can actually start to change that. It's, again, one of the ways, but we have to do all of the different ways. Let me get to the Hutch River cleanup because this is really important. I know that there are many members of this group that have emailed with me as well as to my team about where are we in this process. And so the mayor of Mount Vernon, and also I know that many members of this group met back, I'm forgetting when it was now, but it's okay, it's fine, it doesn't matter. The point is that 6 of the 7, just for the progress of it, 6 of the 7 projects are completed. My office and myself have been in communication with the mayor's office regarding the pending items from that meeting, and we're awaiting feedback. What I'm just going to share with you is something that I know to be true, which is that there seems to be some kind of effort, not some kind of, let me be very clear with my communication. There seems to be a desire to lump in all of the money that was received from the American Rescue Plan with the other monies that were received by Mount Vernon, so that it's preventing the city of Mount Vernon from taking on just this issue when they are actually allowed to separate the monies and start working on this issue. It is definitely a criticism that I have right now of how this is rolling out. It's something I am pushing back on. I have worked with Lisa Hofflich, who is the Hudson Valley representative from Senator Gillibrand's office on this issue as well. And why that matters is because they were also in touch with the EPA. However, this is a very unusual, I don't understand, but this is just the rule apparently thing. Because of ongoing litigation, what Senator Gillibrand's office told our office is that we were not advised to participate in the meeting that Mount Vernon leadership had with the EPA. And so what they told our office was that they will be in touch with us after the meeting is done to reassess next steps. But I just want to be very clear that what I'm really saying is that the money already exists, and that what it seems is happening is that the mayor's office is trying to combine it with the other federal funds in a way that is preventing them from releasing the funds to do the remaining work on the project, and they don't actually have to. So the money can actually already be put to use, like now. It can actually start happening. And so anyway, we are getting to the bottom of that. And that's the unfortunate reason why this has been taking so long. So I'm sorry about that. Let's see. Okay. A few more community updates. Tuesday, February 15th at 1:30, we are going to participate in a PPE and home testing kit distribution at Hawkins Park at 2 p.m. We've been doing this throughout the district because we have been receiving a lot of materials and PPE supply for the past month or so, especially from the governor's office. And so we were at the American Legion a few weeks ago, and then in other parts of the district. But if this is something that you need, or if there is something on the list of supplies that should be there that isn't there, please just tell us, because this administration really is actually willing to provide more and go above and beyond in a way that I have never found to be the case before. Okay, let's see. Redistricting. I know that everybody is really pissed off about redistricting, and I understand why. So I just want to acknowledge that and hold space for that. It doesn't feel good to be carved off that way. I understand. And I am here to listen to you about that. I understand. That's just what I will say. I understand. It sucks. I'm just going to say that it sucks. So there's no other way to put it. I'm sorry. There's no other word to use. So just know that I know that it sucks. And I agree with you on that. So I get it. I really get it. I also know that utility bills are spiking. This is insane, to the point where I have gotten a few emails of people who have bills that are in the $8,000 range. Con Ed is saying that nothing has changed. I don't believe it, primarily because Con Ed has a monopoly on so much of our power, and they really don't have an incentive to share information with us. But what I will say is that the contact that we've worked with at least a few times has always been forthright in at least sharing information that they have, or fixing a hookup that's broken, or getting the heat back on, or whatever is needed. And so if this is happening to you, please tell us so that we can address it, because this is really, really, in many ways devastating. Now, if you don't pay your power, I just want to remind everybody, they, number one, cannot turn it off in the winter months. That is not permitted. There's a rule in place for that. And number two, the moratorium for the public utility aspect of the bills that we passed last year, while it is over, the application to the ERAP program or the LRAP program, Emergency Rental Assistance Program, or Landlord Rental Assistance Program, or the Homeowners Assistance Fund, is a way that we can actually pause the shutting off of any kind of services or utilities that you're getting. Although, again, as a reminder, they're not allowed to do that in the winter months. Okay, let's see. New York City Ferry, this is the last thing. I have so many more things to share with you all, but I will just stop talking because this is going to go on forever. So getting the New York City Ferry to extend to City Island, I know that this is something that you all care about. I think it is a great idea. I know that some people in the past have not really liked it, but I think it's a way to connect City Island to the rest of the world and have also people come to City Island. And I think that when people from other boroughs visit City Island, especially from Brooklyn or from Queens, they are so happy to visit, and also really have just like the best things to say. And we want to encourage people to come to City Island, to eat at the restaurants, to shop in the small businesses. And this is another way to do it. I know that the concern, I know I've heard the concerns, and I'm also happy to listen to them so that, you know, if this is something that actually does go through, which we hope it does, we think it will, it can, that we do it in a way that is actually thoughtful and considers a lot of what your input is, because that's honestly what matters the most. And so that's it. I'm going to stop talking now. It was a lot.
That was a wealth of information. So thank you, Senator, and thank you for joining us. And the ferry could help reduce traffic to the island during those summer months, just so people keep in mind. And we have over 700 signatures because
awesome.
We've had a few good small business sponsors on the avenue who have it in their window, and people have been signing up. Someone's been tearing them down in other places, but
Right.
I will turn that person into a convert. Does anyone, if everyone can use the raise hands function, I know we've got the senator for a few more minutes. So I want to get in as many questions as humanly possible, not take up any time. So does anyone have a question they want to ask the senator now? Patrick, I see you're first, and then Nancy, you're second. Anyone else use the hand function, and I'll if we have time for one more, we'll put them in.
Hello, Senator, can you hear me?
I kind of can hear you. It's a little low.
I'll kind of shout up then.
There you go.
Okay, I just wanted to say thank you for hooking us up with Angela Conley, your constituent services representative. And we had a very good discussion about the direction that we can go in with the Hutchinson River problem. And the question I have for you, though, because she shared with me that the EPA is meeting with the mayor of Mount Vernon.
Yes.
You kind of alluded it to a little bit with the senatorial interactions, but I kind of got the feeling that the EPA may be putting a squeeze on that situation. Is that true or not?
What do you mean? Like stopping it?
Well, no, to put a squeeze on it, I mean giving it a push. From
Yes, they are giving a push. That's yes. Well, there's two things going on. There are two different issues, and I forget what the other one is, but it's not just one issue. So, excuse me, now I'm remembering. Okay, it's the EPA and the DOJ. So there's a DOJ issue that's unrelated, and then there's the EPA issue. Yes, that was my understanding as well, that they're basically what they've said to the city of Mount Vernon is you can start to work on this project with the monies from this bill, the American Rescue Plan. And I don't know what else, but this is where I got that information from. So the answer is yes, but everything seems to move as slow as molasses. So it's,
okay.
I know.
We wanted to go fast, right, with the spring coming. And the other thing that she mentioned was that she has connections with the Bronx River Alliance, which would be a good partnership for us to pursue too. So that was kind of good news coming from her. From
Yes.
that level, from your office, you know. So that will make a lot of good things happen potentially.
And the Bronx River Alliance has been incredibly successful at, number one, cleaning up the Bronx River, to the point where I think that I'm pretty sure that Nilka told me, who's one of the people who runs it, that they had salmon. Or like there was some indigenous fish
Not
that
salmon.
returned. It
Beavers are back.
it wasn't beavers though. It was something that made my head kind of spin, because I was like, that sounds so unusual. There were fish that had not been there for a long time.
Yes, that's true. Senator, I just want you to know, this is Barbara speaking.
Hi, Barbara. I see you.
Hi. I mentioned it earlier at the meeting that Save the Sound has been given a lot of money from the federal government, to create the plan to clean up the Hutch.
Yes.
We're very excited about it, and your office should know about it and be involved as much as possible.
We do know about it. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then second question was Nancy. Nancy, are you there?
Yes, I am. I'm sorry. There are two, this is totally a different subject.
That's okay.
Bills on decriminalization of prostitution.
Yeah.
I don't know where we are with those, but the 3775, which would decriminalize everyone, that is going to increase human trafficking enormously.
I remember you sent me an email about this, and I read the whole email and I appreciated it. It was very thorough and very helpful. And so thank you. Let me just say that, first of all. Second of all, if I had to guess, I'm about 95% certain that that is not a bill that will be passing this year.
3775?
Yes, it's Salazar's bill.
Because human trafficking, you know, on City Island, we have the party boats. As I said, studies have shown that a third of men buy people always. Another third would like to, but they don't because they're afraid of getting caught. And the other third never would.
Right.
If we decriminalize the pimps, the Johns, we're going to increase human trafficking. We have that right here under our noses.
Yes,
So
we do.
3775, Nevada is an example. I strongly support the other one, 6040, and so do the organizations that I work with.
Okay.
Because they protect women.
I think that's Senator Kruger's bill. I'm pretty sure that's what the second one is. Yes. Okay.
And that's what we support, because men buy prostitutes. 90% of them are married with kids, and they buy prostitutes to do with violence. And if it's legal for her, it's a business deal, then when she's defending her life, because he's bought her to do the physical violence that he wouldn't do with his wife, she goes to jail because you signed up for this.
Right.
Just want you to think about that.
Yep. Okay. I will.
I'm
Thank
sorry.
you. Thank you.
Yeah. And then the last question, because I know the senator has a lot of demands on her time, is Andrea Allen.
Okay, another very different thing. Hi, I'm Andrea. And I was wondering I have like 2 or 3 questions about the New York Health Act. I think
Good
that's
question.
the universal healthcare. What's happening this year is the first one. Also, what happened last year that it didn't even get out of the committee when the chair was the one who, it was his bill?
Mhm.
And a little bit about what happens to Medicare people.
Good question. Okay, so Medicare people, those who are on Medicare is, nobody's going to lose their Medicare. Let's just be very clear. It's just really important just for everyone to know on the record from the beginning. That was something I remember in 20.
Okay, I read the bill and I don't agree with you based on reading the bill last year.
Okay, well, maybe we should talk about it offline. Happy to do that.
I want to say that here because clearly the bill was written so that it didn't require the Medicare waiver. That's true.
Right. It doesn't require the Medicare waiver. That's correct.
Everything in it was, we're going to try to get it, and we're going to try to get everybody on Medicare to be covered by the New York Health Act, whatever it is. I mean, I really read that entire bill of
That's
last year. And so it says, yeah, okay, we're not asking for the waiver. It can exist without Medicare, but we're going to try to get you. is the
Sure.
way it came across to me.
I see. I see. I don't think that, I mean, if you read every single word of the bill, I'm not doubting what you're saying at all. So just want to say that, start by saying that, so you know that I'm not doubting you. And this question has come up so many times about this bill, about the Medicare waiver. And so this is now, I will ask Senator Rivera about that, because we just had a town hall about 2 weeks ago with Northwest Bronx Indivisible about the New York Health Act. And it was a 2-hour town hall. And unfortunately, Assemblymember Gottfried could not attend. So it was myself and Assemblymember Dinowitz, and we answered questions for 2 hours. And I think we did, for it not being our bill and just really not knowing everything like the sponsors do, I think we did a pretty bang up job on just providing as much information as we know, and like where the bill is at, and like how we think it can get done. And so that kind of reverse engineers into the question that you started with, which is like, what is going on around here? What is really going on here is that even though we have sponsors in the Senate, like with 32 sponsors, right? So people will be able, if the bill comes to the floor, it has the votes, supposedly, right? That's hoping that everybody on the bill actually votes for the bill. But in order to get the bill to the floor, there are several unions that are concerned about the bill still. And so that's really what's in the way. And there have been really incredible momentum. There's been incredible momentum with unions. So NISNA's on the bill as a supporter, but now we have 1199, and 1199 was not always a sponsor, a supporter of the bill. And that happened through a lot of conversation and work and reworking of the bill and amendments and taking certain things into consideration. And so it's just one of the, I think what needs to happen is that the remaining unions who are not really excited about it or feel worried about it or feel like, you know, this is something that they provide to their members as a benefit of being part of a union. It just needs to be addressed on individual union level. And it is happening. I know that Senator Rivera is having those conversations, and I'm assuming also that that Assemblymember Gottfried is too, but it's not happening at a pace that I feel like I think is giving people satisfaction, but it is happening. So just know that. And in the Senate, I don't know about the Assembly, last year was the first time in my entire time in the legislature that we conferenced the bill for a few hours, which means that we actually were able to bring it up for discussion, and every member in the conference was able to actually ask questions about it and raise their concerns and have Senator Rivera answer the question. So that is where it's at now. There is a working group, I believe, around the bill, although I'm not sure of like when they meet. I'm not in the working group, even though I'm on the health committee. And so, yeah, that I know that is what is stopping it right now.
Okay.
So it's not coming out of committee because it probably wouldn't get the votes.
No, it's not coming out of committee because there are still some unions that are concerned about it.
Right, but why is that keeping it? Why is that keeping it from coming out of committee?
Because the unions are very organized and they like have had a seat at a table historically in the state. And I think that in a union city and state, which we value union work and union jobs and union labor, their voice is valuable in the process. And so we want to make sure, well, I'm not speaking on behalf of Senator Rivera, obviously, but I am sure what I'm assuming is that he wants to make sure that they are comfortable with it before that happens. I will also say, though, that an organized effort around getting this bill out of committee and bringing it to the floor the coalition around the state has continued to organize, but I think that we could do more. And I also think that Senator Jabari Brisport from Brooklyn last year was very clever in the way that he advocated for this bill. And at the end of the year, he did something that was really unusual and different, where every single bill that passed, so the end of session, the last few days, it's just like one bill after the next bill. And like nobody talks on all the bills, but he stood up to speak on every bill, and he took a bill about like turtle crossings and random things, and he brought it back to the New York Health Act. And it was very smart. And I thought that made people be like, oh shoot, like that's like, stop doing that. But it was good that he did it because it actually made people pay attention. And so things like that actually work. And it was that advocacy and others that actually got us to even talk about it. So we're making progress, even if it's slow as the turtle, like literally as slow as the turtle.
No pun intended, I'm sure.
No pun intended.
So thank you for that, Andrea. So my thing is just a comment. I'll follow up with you afterwards, but just when we had a meeting about flooding about a year ago, your staff, your office supported us. We appreciate that. And it was basically called by the mayor's office, called by Miguel Rendon, who was your former deputy chief, wonderful person. And then unfortunately, after we had this meeting, and it really forced all the agencies, they couldn't play like the Three Stooges routine of like DOT to DEP to parks to climate. And it was forced that, there were some changes that need to be made to address flooding on the island. And, you've been in some of those places, I know. And now it seems like some of these agencies, because certain people have left their respective positions, have come up with a case of collective amnesia. So we may need your office and your help to remind some of these agencies that they sat in the meeting, they all agreed they were going to take some of these things very seriously, and they're not.
Sure. Okay. I'm happy to do that. That's one of the things that, okay. So first of all, I'm sorry that that's happening. Will help, of course. This is just a clever suggestion when it comes to administrations. It would be really awesome if when you take a post as a commissioner or as a civil servant, that your term is 6 years, so that when let's say the mayor's 4 years, so that when a new person comes in, there's a continuity of service. And then after 2 years, you can put your people in, or even after a year, 5 years, because I just think this is one of the most ridiculous things that slows down government in a way that people already criticize us for. And it's not cool. So anyway, that's just a clever thing I've been thinking about when it comes to government and administration, but will help, John, for sure.
I appreciate that. And I appreciate all that you do. And,
no problem. Thank you.
We will talk soon. Thank you very much, Senator.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to get back to our agenda. Thanks again to Joanna from the Senator's office who arranged a lot of this, and we appreciate her. And Joanna will be in touch with you. So we are going back to our ongoing issues. I wrote, I'm just going to read them out in case I know some people are on here via phone. So that would be Rodman's Neck. We're still going through the 7,100 page FOIL. It's a real kicker. And we brought in an environmental attorney as well as Nancy Keck from the Borough President's Office, who's the Health and Human Service person. And so we're going to be following up with them. The Elizabeth Mass Memorial. Beverly, do you want to speak about that for a minute?
Sure. So the last time we got an update from Parks, they were very close to having the plaque ready. They've asked us to identify the bench, and I think it makes the most sense in the world to install the plaque on the bench that has kind of become the new memorial site. We are still raising funds to also install a memorial tree. So John, I don't know if you can pop the GoFundMe link into the chat or send it around after. We are a few dollars short on that. But as soon as we do get a date from Parks, then we'll start working on having probably a brief memorial to recognize the installation of the plaque, and we'll coordinate that obviously with her family members to the extent that they would like to come. The anniversary of her murder is coming up in mid-April, and so it would be nice to be able to have the plaque installed before that very sad anniversary. What did I miss, John?
I thought that was very good. And we're going to do the memorial right around the anniversary. The only reason we're not doing it on the date is because Beverly's very clever and realized that was conflicting with two major religious holidays and the weekends. So we will be doing it afterwards so everyone can attend and pay their respects. But otherwise, I thought you handled everything very well. Thank you, Beverly. Then we, everything else on here, we have the parks improvements, which we're working on with the senator's office. Obviously, you guys have already seen some of the good things that have come out of that. Obviously, we've gotten more deer signs. We've gotten more the quick curb by Shore Road, which we're looking to extend. Joanne, please tell Anthony we are looking to extend the quick curb, because I know he had some questions or concerns with that. We also, obviously, the no U-turn signs over by the Hutch exit and entryway have been reinstalled. One of them was knocked down again. I'm getting them out there to do that. And then we're still waiting on a few different improvements for the park. We had asked for them to do something to take the Rodman's Neck circle, the parkland of the circle where the memorial is, where the person had been in a car accident a few years ago, to put bollards all around it or some sort of protection, wall or whatever. DOT denied that today, so we're going to go back to the drawing board on that. But in other ways, they have been very helpful and they have been answering our requests, so I don't want to criticize them too much. We're still working on a food scrap drop-off site due to composting, and we're applying for some grants. So David Diaz on our board has been helping me. So if you have any ideas of ways we can improve the community or needs that we have that aren't being addressed, email us at cityislandrising, all one word, at gmail.com. And we will incorporate those into whatever grants, we want to start applying and getting us more of the resources we need as things get back to normal. So please, let us know.
John, on the food scrap drop-off point, so you may have gotten this flyer in your mail recently. So in addition to the group food scrap drop-off, which we're working on, Department of Sanitation periodically asks for your opinion about whether or not you want curbside compost. One of the reasons why we have to work on group drop-off is because not enough people signed up last time this window was open. So you can go to nyc.gov/curbside composting and put your address in and ask for curbside composting. It takes 5 minutes to answer a few questions. So if that's something that you're interested in, we're sort of pursuing both paths simultaneously because clearly there wasn't critical mass on City Island last time they tried this. So keep an eye out for this little Department of Sanitation flyer in your mailbox. And again, it's nyc.gov/curbside composting.
If we signed up once, we're still in the system. We don't have to go back.
I wouldn't assume that. I don't know.
We will double check that. But it should be that way, but we will double check that for you. I'm sorry, I'm on here. Who asked that question? Was that Andrea?
It was Andrea.
All right, I'll get back. I'll get
Andrea.
to everybody on it, but yes, I will get back on that. And then before we get, these are kind of things that, it's funny as these meetings go on, and especially after the senator was addressing people, I find myself like making notes in the margins of things that people should know that maybe they don't. The 45th Precinct Council, where I also do some work, we had a Narcan presentation. This is naloxone, which we, for people suffering from addictions. People don't know this, but the 45th Precinct area is one of the worst areas for addiction and naloxone problems in the borough, in the city. We're one of the top 10 neighborhoods, and it particularly impacts a lot of the demographic groups that comprise the CB10 area, including us. So we did a naloxone training, 30 people came, which is higher than we usually get about 10, but 30 people showed up. So it was, there's definitely a need for this. So as a result of that, like we did last time, we did a naloxone training for City Island. I reached out, DOH sent me somewhere between, I think, 10 or 20 naloxone kits. So if you take the training, I will drop off the naloxone kit to you. And if you're just somebody who has a friend or a family member who's suffering from addiction, you can just email us at cityislandrising@gmail.com, and we will just drop the naloxone kit off to you. Again, these things can save lives, and we probably all know somebody suffering or grappling with addiction, so we want to make sure that they are taken care of. Onto a more of a quality of life issue, maybe not as serious. The sidewalk sheds at both across from the school as well as the one across from Seaport City. Wanted to let you all know that at first they didn't have permits. They were both fined. One was fined $5,000. The other was fined $7,500. They've now gotten the permits. They're now legal for the sidewalk sheds. They're legal to the end of July. but I know that's been an issue because they weren't permitted, but they went up, and they still have some compliance issues, but they have applied for permits. So they are trying to legalize and bring those up to standard. I agree with you. I don't like the fact that they're there either. I don't think it's a good look if they're not doing any sort of construction. There are loopholes in the city construction code by which, as long as you put up these sidewalk sheds and you keep your permits new, you can renew them in perpetuity. There have been bills at the city council level to try to stop this in the past. They've been blocked by the real estate lobby, and that's something maybe people should take up with their elected officials. Finally, the senator brought up, well, not finally, there are three more. Senator brought up this Community and Climate Investment Act, which is the bill to fund a lot of the climate resiliency measures we need, the $15 billion. They are doing a bus ride up to Albany. I want to say it's March 8th or March 10th to try to make an impact on the budget. A few of us are probably going. If you'd like to join us, it should be a fun time. Albany's not exactly known as a party town, but we're going up there early in the day. And if enough of us go, it should be a good time. And again, advocating for more resiliency measures. 3, I was at a town hall meeting with Senator Schumer about 2 weeks ago. And I know a lot of us, we were talking about the Metro North earlier. He advised that when the Bronx stations open, you're not going to have to pay the full Metro North rate. There's going to be some level of a subsidy. So I don't know why that hasn't been publicly announced yet, but that was a pretty big friggin' deal, and everyone in the room clapped. So, you're in on a little inside information that came straight from Chuck Schumer's mouth. So it's probably pretty good considering the position he holds. 2 projects we are working on that are not as farther along as UPK is, but I did want to talk about because they came out of these meetings. One is there's been a concerted effort for the better part of a decade to bring artist lofts, artist live and work space to City Island to accommodate our artist community. Obviously, there are some who are not in favor of it, some who are. There have been issues in other areas that have the artist space. But a member of this group connected me with a nonprofit called Shoshana. And basically what they do is they come in, they lease a workspace, not a live space, a workspace where an artist will work for 3 to 6 months to a year. And as a result of that, the artist will be working out of that space, putting their artwork in the window. The owner can claim the space as a loss on their taxes. The nonprofit will pick up the liability. They'll pay the utilities, which, as we were going over, maybe is a good thing that the property owner want to get off their hands, but they don't pay rent. So we are trying to find a property that would be willing to host this. We've done the initial outreach to this nonprofit, and they're super interested. We've went to 3 separate property owners. 2 weren't interested, and 1 basically had just gotten in a new tenant and said he'd keep it in mind for the future. So if you have ideas where you think this would work, again, it's got to be a storefront because they want them to display the artwork in the window. And it's also good advertisement for that potential property that'll be coming back on the market very soon. So it's kind of free advertising in a sense. So if you have ideas where that kind of artist space could go, email us, cityislandrising@gmail.com. We're reaching out all the time to different realtors and everything, including island-based realtors, to make that happen. And then finally, myself and the board have been working with the NYC Mesh program. They had a wonderful write-up in the New York Times a few months ago to try to do low-cost Wi-Fi in a certain section of the island. You need a very tall area with line of sight, and a lot of the trees we have in this community make that hard. We were looking at a certain space around Hawkins Park, which would have really been great, but unfortunately they have those unique tall trees up in Hawkins Park, and it would have blocked a lot of the reception. So that's not happening. So another thing, keep in mind, if you know somebody who owns a tall building or can be helpful on this, feel free to email us and we'll go forward. That concludes. I know, Roy, you had your hand up earlier, Roy. So we had messaged on the side. Do you still have a question that I could answer?
I think I was asking about the Metro North stuff, but you addressed that already, so I'm good.
Okay, and I emailed you the letter, and you're right, we'll put it out on our social media as well.
Yep.
But it is in the Island Current this month, and I think it's going to be in the Bronx Times, but we'll do more for that. So thank you for that. Does anyone else have a question, comment, concern about any of our ongoing or open issues?
I have one and 2, actually. I'll make a brief statement. Is the
Yeah, sure.
program is the Gateway program still alive? Because every time I come onto City Island and see that awful eyesore at the end of the bridge, it makes me feel so bad. Now, the other issue is I was down at Commons Garage yesterday and going really fast down the road and achieving absolutely nothing was a street sweeper. So I have no idea what the purpose of them even coming there. They were actually right by the school, and the speed he was going at and the dust that he was creating, not in the curb, but outside the cars in the middle of the street. What is the point of having those guys come by?
So two very
I
good questions.
can speak to the gateway question if somebody,
I
if
would li- I
can,
could,
John.
Yeah, no, Linda,
Wonderful.
go right ahead.
All right.
Linda, hi.
So as you all may know, the gateway, people who were in favor of recovering the gateway for community use formed a not-for-profit, City Island Gateway, a couple years ago. Our efforts to enter into an agreement with the city so that the community could use the city-owned property for waterfront access and to beautify the property and to get rid of weeds and debris and misuse really fell upon deaf ears during COVID, and we didn't gain much traction at all. But we're hopeful that with this change of administration and changes in leadership in the DOT, that we'll be able to make some progress and let the community voices be heard on actually cleaning up that part of the island and getting community access to what is city-owned property and to put it into use in conformance with New York City's waterfront plan. And the city came out with a new waterfront plan. It completely supports what City Island Gateway as an organization is for. And Patrick, I encourage you, if you are very excited about the Gateway and wanting to see progress, we'd love to get your involvement and your ideas. And we could really use everybody's support in this because it's for the community. And anybody who has ideas and wants to help, more than happy. So please reach out to me, reach out to Maria Caruso. Many people know Maria Caruso. She's the new president of the organization. Sandra Erickson is our vice president. Barbara Delensick is our secretary, I believe. Oh no, I apologize. Barbara used to be on the board as a executive board member, but now it's Ellen. I'm sorry, I forget her last name, is our secretary. And I didn't come prepared with names, and I have a
Murphy.
deficiency with names. Tom Murphy, is that his name? No. He's our treasurer. Anyway, hopefully you could reach out to me, Linda Baldwin. I'm on the board. Maria Caruso, Sandra Erickson, or John Doyle, who could get messages to the right people, would really like your support. And Patrick, you know me, so feel free to reach out to me.
Well, you know what? The reason I asked that question is I seem to remember their excuse was it was the parking for all of the materials and all the trucks when they were doing reconstruction of the power cables and the water and the bridge. And they seem to have backed off on that. So why are they still there?
You are correct. The people who are there are squatters. They are tenants of an adjoining property owner who has allowed them to use city property for gain. We heard this directly from DOT, and with the change of administration, we brought it up with new leadership who said, do you have any of this in writing? Well, we didn't. We had multiple meetings where this was discussed and agreement by DOT to evict those users because they were using city-owned property illegally. But we did not have anything in writing. And so it appears we're back to square one, but we're not really. We really do think we're going to get traction this time around. And I can explain to you more in another context, but we think that there were perhaps some barriers that aren't there anymore. New leadership brings a new opportunity, and we're moving forward. And hopefully, we're very optimistic that this year we'll get to. Oh, I should mention, Con Ed, who came, I believe, to this organization, but certainly came to the community board, said that they needed to use the property for their project, bringing in a new gas line into City Island. So we could not do anything, we were told, could not do anything until after Con Ed was done with the project because they needed to bring the gas line straight through that property. And DOT said that they could use the property as a staging area and in order to allow for their construction and of bringing on this gas line onto City Island. So we have been waiting patiently for Con Ed to complete, but we recently heard from Con Ed that their project is delayed because the property is still being used by this illegal squatter. So there is a lot to work to be done to move things along, but as soon as those folks get off the property, Con Ed can use the property, and then it could be made available to the community for beautification and for use. We're hoping to get Con Ed's permission during their construction to allow for beautification to take place in areas that they're not occupying, so that we don't lose more time. And sorry for taking up so much time, John, in your meeting, but I
No.
really appreciate the opportunity.
No, I appreciate what you guys are trying to do. And I think Linda kind of said it towards the end there. It's been held up by bureaucracy that's been out of their control. And, knowing a little of the backstory, I think now that they have new partners, you may find, in different, in the new administration, you may find there being more success. So let's hope so. And, obviously, in the past, and Linda knows this, I've reached out to DCAS and asked, who allowed a truck parking lot at this thing? So,
No
I
one
share-
did. The answer is no one did.
Yes, but you're right. But as we were just talking about with Biaggi, sometimes with the agencies, it turns into circular firing squads, and you've got to, send the emails and be the pain in the, well, you know what, and I don't mind doing that. So, but
We
we will
appreciate your support.
absolutely, and we will. And Patrick, you and I could talk, even with Linda, the three of us can talk offline about maybe some things we can do to prod this along. But I want to reemphasize what Linda said towards the end because it was very important. Contact your local elected officials and let them know you don't want a truck parking lot there. You don't want, this property to somehow be sold. We want this to be an amenity for the community. This is City Island's front yard. And if anyone here had a front yard looking like that, you would get written up by the city. But since the city is operating there, they look the other way and it's a disgrace. But moving on there. Absolutely.
Oh, I also wanted to say that Beverly is also a member of our board. So Beverly, I apologize for not mentioning you.
No worries, Linda.
Yeah, I should have just, that's a good point. I'm sorry, Beverly, I stole your thunder there. Do you have anything you want to add? Because you're the more knowledgeable one on this because you sit on the board.
No, you guys covered it.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that. And Patrick, there was a second question in there that now it totally blanked my mind. I'm sorry.
About the awful street sweeper, that was a joke.
Yes, so we've reached out to the community board. So this gets into an age-old problem on the island of alternate side parking. And some of the neighborhood wants it and some of the neighborhood doesn't. And they go back and forth on each other and it turns into this vicious argument all the time. And as a result, because there's no alternate side of the street parking, that's why the fall leaves are still outside in the gutter in a lot of these places. So what we are doing is we're working with the community board and sanitation. They're going to set a date where everyone needs to get their car off the main avenue for a day or for a certain number of hours. One day they'll clean one side of the street, one day they'll clean the other side of the street. It had been scheduled for January. It was delayed because of the 2 snowstorms.
Oh, good.
But to be continued. It is very important. So I will get back to you on the snowstorms. So we'll talk about that. Does anyone else have any other questions?
John, anything new on Adopt the Block?
Yes. So thank you, Stephen. So what's going on with Adopt the Block is we have a handful of people who volunteered. And I want to actually talk to you because what I want to do is I want to basically use the Adopt a Block, the volunteers we have, to give out some of the PPE on their blocks because it'll get people's attention and use that as a possible recruitment tool. Give them something and then hand out something in return. I was thinking maybe we go door to door, just flyering some of the blocks too. But right now we have about 5 people and as you've probably seen, I've been advertising it. I included it in the newsletter that went out. And we've been posting it in our social media postings. So we will continue to advertise it. I think that's going to peak as things seem to get better with COVID and people start spending more time out of their house. Usually during the spring, when people get outside, they start to realize all the things that are wrong in their neighborhoods.
Thank you, John.
Yes, no problem, no problem. And we'll have you and I should connect afterwards. We'll have an offline strategy session to make this work. Because there's another program that the Point CDC does in Hunts Point. It's like a senior check-in program. They call it Be a Buddy. So we want to actually incorporate some of that into the overall block watcher things we want to do. Okay, anyone else? Any questions, comments, concerns, criticisms, death threats?
Compliments.
Oh, yes, we have a hand raised. Kate, go right ahead.
Hi,
Welcome.
my name is Kate Theobald. I just want to introduce myself. This is my first meeting. I live on the other side of the Bronx, but I visit City Island a lot and I enjoy it. And I just wanted to see what this group was all about. And, you know, I was listening and I heard something the state senator said about the increased, Con Ed bills people are seeing. We're seeing that over here too. And we kind of reached out to Con Ed, and I don't know if they've hit your guys' mailbox yet, but back in, we learned that back in like January 2020, the Public Service Commission, voted and allowed for a 13.5% rise in supply costs. That became effective on January 2022. So it's just hitting us now. That's what it's for, what we're all going to see the increase in our Con Ed bills. And Con Ed, they say they receive no profits in this because it's supply costs. It's not determined by Con Ed. I just thought you guys should be forewarned, and that's what the answer is. But, again, I'm just here to listen and learn more about what's going on in City Island and this group. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. That was very informative. I mean, it was, I don't know if it's good news, but it definitely explains what's going on.
Hey, Kate, were you on the public power call that was on Twitter this afternoon by any chance? Because that was literally brought up at that topic was brought up today.
No, I wasn't.
Cool. Okay, well,
What they said too?
It was I believe it was done by DSA. It was a public power call that was done on Twitter. And it talked a lot about what was happening now with Con Ed and the increases. But there is a bill, and we should look at it. And John, you may maybe be familiar. It is let me give it a number. 1 second.
Sure.
It is Bill A1466A.
Yeah.
It is
A1466A.
That's
Okay.
the New York State Bill Public Renewables Act.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We'll look into it and maybe we can do some of education around it. But Kate, thank you for sharing that because I didn't know that. And that even though that's outrageous, if it is we'll love to see how to best address that. But you're right. And then everybody knows, I just want to do, because I know we're a few minutes over time here, but does anyone else have another question before we move on from that topic of discussion for the utility bills? Going once, twice, sold. Okay. If it's okay with everybody, because I did announce it earlier in the meeting, if everyone goes to the agenda, they see that the Mother Nature Bond Act is an item on the agenda with a motion to support. Obviously, we don't take a lot of motions to support public policy things normally. We did take a motion on public power, but we're gonna, if it's okay there, and we'd like to take a motion here tonight to support the Clean Air, Clean Water, Green Jobs Environmental Bond Act. We did check with our wonderful legal advisor here, Beverly, who advised us that it is totally okay for City Island Rising as a nonprofit, as a non-political entity, to endorse a ballot measure. And I want to remind everybody that when all those ballot measures went down in November, one of the two that did pass was a fundamental right to clean air, clean water, and a good environment. So we don't anticipate this being a very controversial thing, but we want to get out there and we want to support it. And we want to, of course, as we were saying earlier, incorporate our Hutch River work into pushing for this, because hopefully we get that $4 billion. Hopefully we get the CCIA monies, and we're able to address both the Hutchinson River pollution and the resiliency stuff. So everybody, if I can, I'll make the motion to support this. Can I get a second on that?
Second.
Or does anyone?
Second,
Barbara, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Thank you all for that, and we'll communicate that outward because we definitely want to do some public support for it in some shape, way, matter, or form. And you're going to be getting a lot of emails from us on our Artist GoFundMe page, on what we're planning with Elizabeth Mass, on everything else we spoke about. We're going to be putting our Metro North letter online. We're going to be doing a lot of other interesting stuff. If you have any ideas, questions, comments, concerns, City Island Rising, one word, @gmail.com. And we are happy to help you in any shape, way, matter, or form. So on behalf of the board, thank you all and have a nice night.
good night.
Good night, everyone.
everyone. Bye.
Good job, John. Good
Oh,
job.
thank you.
Thank